Welcome to the Data Room, where we share best practices and actionable tips on being a data-driven company, or as we call it, data first. If you're a B2B revenue leader looking to scale your growth stage business, come and join experienced CEO and tech founder Scott Stouffer in the Data Room. Welcome to the Data Room. We are back with another special episode this week. This time, I'm sharing a clip of Scott Stouffer, CEO and co-founder of scaleMatters. Earlier this year, Scott was a guest on a popular webinar with Sonar CEO and co-founder Brad Smith. They talked about the growth of RevOps and the challenges RevOps leaders face today. They also share their advice on how RevOps teams can provide strategic value to the C-suite, which I think that's a concept that a lot of RevOps leaders today would love to do. Without further ado, here's Scott with some tangible ways that RevOps leaders can help your executive team.
To me, having sat in the CEO role for now, 28, 29 years, when I've had RevOps that has felt truly a strategic asset to me, it's because they understand that within the go-to-market space, there are all of these different opportunities to optimize or to get better. And we tend to bucket them into a couple different categories. But if you think about, one way you could think about these things are, where is there friction? Where are there points of inefficiency that ultimately depress win rates, depress sales cycles, or elongate sales cycles, et cetera? And the first batch of these would be what we call product market message fit, right? Do you have the right product? Are you going after the right people? Are you communicating your message in a way that maximizes success? The second set of these would be where we spend a lot of energy in the RevOps world is kind of the entire lead to deal funnel process, if you will, which includes what strategies are we using, to drive new prospects, where through all of our processes and conversion gates are there process breakdowns happening. For my modest performers, why are they performing poorly? Is it because of effort? Is it because of effectiveness, et cetera? How do we coach them? And my view in particular, is that when RevOps is most strategically valuable is when RevOps is delivering insights around these issues to the senior leadership team, the CEO, the CRO, head of sales, head of marketing. And the reality is that none of those people have the time themselves to look at a bunch of data and figure out what's going on. So somebody needs to actually package this data into actionable insights that help us as a company and a senior leadership team to optimize around each of these issues. So I'm just gonna quickly go through each of the six, but I'll try to have you understand what it would feel like, right? So let's talk about targeting. So we're optimizing for product market message fit and specifically targeting. Imagine the RevOps person is going to this chief marketing officer and saying, you know what, these people that you're pulling in through AdWords and G2, they aren't converting very well. And the reason they're not converting well is because they're less sophisticated buyers. The reason we know this is because on all the sales recordings, they tend to mention this thing called one consolidated system at a much higher rate than prospects mention that come from the other channels and that actually convert higher. And we're basically saying that one consolidated system as a prospect priority tends to correlate with a less sophisticated buyer. So, hey, Miss CMO, you may want to consider, modifying your copy in a way that better kind of eliminates these less sophisticated buyers and instead attracts more sophisticated buyers. Right? This is an example, and this isn't far-fetched. This can absolutely be insights that are provided to the senior revenue leaders. With this level of knowledge, then the CMO and her staff can work on, okay, how do we modify? Let's look at our copy. How do we modify it to maybe get rid of these less sophisticated people? And of course, Historically, old school, you try to capture as much information about the prospects as you can in the database. Maybe your salespeople go through a BANT analysis, and rarely is that set up in the database in a way that is easy to statistically analyze. You may enrich contact or account data with stuff from ZoomInfo or something else like that. But the reality is, everything you need to know is spoken by these prospects in the sales calls that you have with them, particularly in the B2B world. And so the tools are there today. Leverage these conversation intelligence tools. And for the RevOps team, learn how to configure them, learn how to take a Gong or a Chorus or something like that, and build very sophisticated trackers into them in the same way you would build very sophisticated data models into Salesforce. But build those trackers so that they surface this data and insights, and then have a way to analyze it, right? Here's an example where we're actually comparing these prospect priorities that are mentioned during sales calls to our nominal win rate. So you can start to get a very good sense of what's important to the prospects. When it is, do we do well as a company or do we not do well? And it zeroes your attention in on stuff that actually matters. So that's an example of how you can be strategically valuable when it comes to targeting. Similarly, on messaging, and here my RevOps conversation is with a sales enablement person, right? And you basically say, look, we actually see with prospects coming to us through inbound that they prioritize improved integration over improved analysis, right? This is just a hypothetical company where those would be feature priorities or something like that. However, those priorities are actually shifted for the people that we're gaining access to through outbound prospecting. So you may want to have the sales team understand that they should change the sequence of how they're going through their pitch by understanding what the source of the prospect was, right? So there's the opportunity exists to help companies really dial in their messaging, both marketing messaging and sales messaging, simply by having a much more robust data set around what these prospects are talking about in terms of what's important to them, et cetera. Similarly, on competitive positioning, I mentioned before, we have forever relied on salespeople to capture who we're competing against, right? And as I mentioned, the order of the pick list often determines the data outcome. You don't need to rely. Let the salespeople focus on their conversation and selling. We can capture that data and be completely unbiased directly from the call recordings, and then surface that data in a way that helps to inform whether it's product management or sales enablement. So same concept, the capabilities exist. What we as CEOs, CROs, et cetera, are looking for is somebody to come to the table with these insights, particularly, if it's a company below 60, 80 million in sales, they probably don't have a dedicated business analyst. So I think the opportunity is there, and I've seen it happen, for RevOps to step into that role. And that immediately puts you at the executive table because you've got more information and understanding of what's going on than probably anybody in the company. A couple other things, sourcing strategy. So now we're talking about lead to deal process. How do we know which of our strategies are more effective, which are less effective? Imagine if you were going to the senior team and saying, you guys need to think about canning software advice because we're getting 3x more productivity out of SDR prospecting than we are out of that listing service on software advice. And the problem is when you get leads in from software advice, you're taking the SDR attention away to service those leads. Right? Imagine if you could actually go to the executive team and have them understand how actions they're taking are creating a bigger problem for themselves. That's strategic value from my perspective. And so here's just an analytical example where you can compare end-to-end conversion and effectiveness of different sourcing strategies. And it starts to become very clear if you have your mindset on how do I deliver these insights to the senior team, you can get to where it's pretty clear on what things are working and what aren't, and that becomes hugely valuable. Process breakdowns. Let's say, for example, something's broken. So everybody knows inbound's not doing so well. But if you go to them and say, look, overall inbound's down significantly, and it's primarily being driven by website conversion rate to demo requests. We know that because the website sessions hasn't changed materially. So it appears that probably your team has made some changes either to the form, the demo request form, or to the navigation to get there. But in any way, it's causing a lot less demo request leads to come in through inbound, and we need to fix it. Similarly, the data exists. If you set up the data to surface these types of insights, it exists. Here's a case where we're comparing 2 quarters with inbound strategy. You can see that the leads are way down. If you've got the data set up, you can drill into process. So here's kind of that next level of drill down. You can see that the web sessions have actually gone up quarter over quarter, but the conversion rate has gone down. Imagine being able to see these friction points in the process in a matter of minutes or maybe an hour, provide that insight proactively to the marketing people, as opposed to waiting till the quarter's completely shot. And that's where we talk about being proactive and actually providing strategic value to the leadership team, is by actually coming out of the tech a bit, although someone still has to make the tech work, but focus on the insights that you can deliver that help the senior leadership team make rapid and ideally profoundly good decisions to move the ball forward.
I think it's safe to say that the more strategic value you can provide your executives, the more supportive they'll definitely be of your team and your initiatives. So just like Scott mentioned, you can use data to move that needle forward. And if you're looking for a way to optimize your data, I would encourage you to start with our data maturity assessment at scalematters.com/assessment. It's a great way to figure out where you need to get started, where your gaps are in your data maturity. And if you want to listen to the entire webinar with Scott, please reach out to me and we can provide a recording to you. Thanks for joining us in the Data Room. We'll catch you next time.